Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
They came to St Paul's Cathedral, 1,500 people of all faiths and none to remember. 6 months ago, 71 people died in Grenfell Tower, an event that shocked so many, not simply because of the horror of the event, but because of what it revealed about how many people live in this country today, seemingly out of sight and out of hearing of so many of us. Joined by members of the royal family and the Prime Minister, survivors and the family and friends of those who died honoured loved ones and gave thanks to the emergency services who risked their lives on that fateful June night.
We pray for those who have offered their support, for all who sustain us with their care and friendship.
So now, together, we remember and reflect.
For a moment, we all lost our fear of each other. We lost our obsession with ourselves, and we reached out across the city in love for our neighbour.
Every time you take one look around, you then remember that they're really gone.
With me now is Mohammed Rasool, who escaped from the 5th floor of Grenfell Tower with his wife, father and 2 young children. He was at the service today. Mr. Rasool, thanks so much for joining us. A difficult day, I am sure, but maybe uplifting in some senses.
Most definitely. It was a very emotional day, but at the same time deeply meaningful. It's a day we came together as a local community and as a nation to remember those we lost in that tragic fire, who were victims of a gross injustice. To see people turn up today from our local community, all around the country, our country's leaders, it was deeply significant. And to have it in such a kind of iconic national landmark, to me shows that when that fire happened, when those people lost their lives, those innocent people lost their lives, you know, men, women and children, that the country felt our pain and felt the pain of everyone who's bereaved and felt the pain of the survivors and the whole community.
There's obviously been a lot of mistrust really revealed by the events that happened and what the local community felt of those in authority. Do you feel that an event like today's helped start to build some trust between the different groups? As you say, the Prime Minister was there, representatives of those in authority. Yeah. Is there a way of this being at least part of some of the healing process and building some trust? Well,
we're hopeful of that, but there's still a long way to go. You still have, you know, 4 out of 5 families from the survivors are still not rehoused or rehomed, should I say. You have some people, you know, that are bereaved, that are still waiting to bury their loved ones. But we're hopeful that the Prime Minister and those in positions of authority will take heed to our concerns and will amend the mistakes of the establishment or the system that failed those people and caused them to die. There's currently a petition going on at the moment which was presented to the Prime Minister, and we are hopeful and optimistic that she will consider and pay attention to the voices of the bereaved and the survivors, and allow there to be a panel of experts alongside the judge that will report back to her.
What's your situation? I know that you have been rehoused in a hotel and moved at least once. Where are you living now?
Still in a hotel.
With your,
with
your
family, my 86-year-old father, who's, you know, the oldest surviving male resident, my wife and my 2 children. My son is 5.5, and my daughter just turned 2 the beginning of this month. She spent a quarter of her life now in hotels.
And what do you feel about the fact that you're still in a hotel 6 months on?
I try not to think about it. If I let kind of concepts like that, if I internalize them too much, then I believe I will break down. But I just get on with my daily life. I go to work, kind of just soldier on. And my family, you know, my wife is a big support in that. So, yeah.
Do you think, you've touched on the inquiry, do you think that the inquiry is moving quickly enough? And also, do you think it ultimately will answer all the questions that you have?
I think it's still early days, but we are hopeful, you know. I think our community, because of what happened and because of our, you know, the neglect that we were shown before the fire, the kind of blatant disregard and indifference from the council side to residents' concerns about health and safety during the refurbishment. The community and people have lost a lot of faith in the justice system altogether, but it's never too late to build bridges, and it's never too late for myself personally or anyone from the community to be proven wrong. And I am hopeful of that. I try and be optimistic. And today was a day of, you know, immense and deep sadness, but with everything that's gone on in the last 6 months, you know, the kind of public response has been amazing and deeply moving at times. We've witnessed beauty that has just moved us to tears. People from all around the country of different backgrounds, different ethnicities, you know, with their differences, coming to help us and transcending their differences and coming to help us and offer us clothes and food and opening up their hearts and their homes to us. And that's kind of renewed my confidence in humanity. So for me, there's a lot of hope there. There's a lot of hope. Yeah.
Mr. Rasool, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your thoughts with you, and hopefully that hope will be rewarded.
I hope so. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
On the morning of the tragedy, Oxford Gardens Primary School, just half a mile from Grenfell Tower, opened its gates not knowing what to expect. The school wanted to offer sanctuary to children who might have lost everything. It later emerged that a third of the children at the school had witnessed the fire or been evacuated. Some had lost friends or relatives or knew people in hospital. And though it couldn't be officially confirmed for weeks, one of the school's own 8-year-old pupils died that night with his family. For the last 6 months, staff have been much more than everyday teachers. They've had to counsel children through their grief while also dealing with their own. And all in the shadow of the burnt-out shell that is all that is left of Grenfell Tower. Last week, Newsnight spent time at Oxford Gardens Primary School.
Morning. I'm from this community. I'm born and bred from this community.
You can do it.
It's a very warm community. It's a very diverse community.
I love the energy. I love the enthusiasm.
It's a little different from most areas. We've got politicians living right beside immigrants. We've got David Cameron lives across the road, for example. So it's such a melting pot of different personalities and cultures. This school is very diverse. I definitely think that this school is a microscopic look at the larger community that we're surrounded by. At 6 a.m. I made a phone call to my head teacher to say it looks like there's a very serious incident on our doorsteps.
They never teach you how to deal with these things. And I just remember just looking at it and not believing what I was seeing at all.
I've never seen so much stuff all over the school. These grounds, all the 3 playgrounds, they were just covered everywhere. Black ash, chunks of it. And I just thought, how are we going to clear this up?
My first thoughts were with my friends that were in the tower, and then it dawned on me the children that we teach at school.
We decided that we wanted to open. We knew that this terrible, terrible, tragic disaster had happened, and we wanted to make sure that the school was a safe place for children to come if they were able to. We were very aware that we would have a lot of children who wouldn't be able to come.
This was done after we found out Mehdi had passed away. Some children wanted to say goodbye. Other children just wanted to write as though he was still here. We have lost somebody. He was a member of our class. He was there all year. He was a beautiful, lovely boy. He was there one day and he was gone the next. Having to explain to a class of children that somebody has died, and in quite a horrific way, was very sad and quite traumatic.
You know, there's a sense of shock and disbelief, there's this sort of sense of anger and outrage, there's the loss, the anxiety. We can't underestimate the enormity, I think, for a child to go to sleep and then come the next day and, you know, a whole family has been wiped out.
I would say it's been very tough, professionally. At times I felt like a counsellor, not just a teacher. I've had to drop particular sessions to talk about how they're feeling, how we should deal with our emotions. Some of the questions that they had were truly horrific. How could this happen? Why has it happened? How did some people get out and he didn't? Really, really tricky questions. And I don't have all the answers.
I've had children during my PE lesson saying, oh look, that's where my bedroom was. It's in their view at playtime, the one time that they're meant to be coming out to play. There's a juxtaposition there because we've got the tower being a shadow.
Okay, let's get that swap on. Move your feet quick, please. Go. Go.
We've had children saying that they wish they were in the tower rather than Mehdi. And when a child says that to you, what can you say?
You know what you're going to do? Have you worked it out?
I knew you'd be happy. There's lots of different ways that children want to share their story. I've had children who want to draw the tower again and again and again, what they saw that night, what they felt that night. I've got children who wanted to make the tower, I've got children who wanted to decorate the tower with beautiful stars and to shroud it in something lovely because it's so ugly for them at the moment. I've had people wanting to be firefighters and save the people in the tower. Everybody's story is so different and everybody needs a different kind of way through.
What should we put there? Hope.
It's a huge thing to take in for an adult, let alone a child. But I do feel like they've been amazing at handling it. Like they've given me strength because they've just been so honest and they've just been themselves.
Morning, boys. Morning. 6 months on, it's still fresh because families still talk about it. Morning, boys. They're still saying we haven't got, you know, we haven't been homed yet, we're still in a hotel, cabs every day coming to school.
I never imagined that when Christmas came we'd still have families who were displaced. We had no idea that it was going to really impact for this long.
We have a lot of children in this year group who were not only there and saw it, but were evacuated and are still in temporary accommodation. That is just a constant reminder of what has happened to them. Their routine has been spoilt for 6 months.
In counselling, what we want to do first was to make sure that people's basic needs are met. So to try and work with their well-being and emotional health when they still don't have a home, I think is really hard.
It's only natural that people want to understand why it happened. Why in 2017 a modern tower block can burn from bottom to top. It's been the most traumatic event that our community's had to deal with, and it's really just relief now. For us, it's about bringing our community back, uplifting people's spirits, and we owe that to the families that we lost.
The things that they've written in here really show how they're feeling about it. Makes you remember that, well, not that we don't already know it, but we've got a long way to go. We know that, and we will get there. Through all this terribleness and all this sadness, we're looking at how strong we are now. People have stood together and people have united, and that's how we move forward.
We all share this grief, and it is a little bit like losing a family member. I think it's hard for people to understand that, but you are with them 9 till 3:30 every day. He was a beautiful member of our class, and we do miss him. We miss him every day. We do. We shouldn't be saying goodbye because he should still be here.
Oxford Garden School, 6 months on. And our thanks to the staff and students there for helping us make that film with Sarah Moralioglu and Katie Razzle. Well, dealing with a community-wide emergency of this scale demands a huge amount of those involved. With me now is Laverne Androbus, a child psychologist from the Tavistock Clinic, who offered support to some of the first people to respond to events that night. Ms. Androbus, thanks very much for joining us. What's remarkable, which comes out from the film we've just seen, is that teachers changed, in this case literally overnight, from worrying about the everyday things of teaching, maths and where's your PE kit, to suddenly having to really care about the emotional well-being of the children they were looking after and teaching. What kind of advice can you give to people in that type of situation?
Well, I think, as you say, it was very complicated. I mean, it's unprecedented, and I think this is an event that nobody could have imagined happening. But I think, you know, what the teachers were saying there was that they had to change. They had to start responding to the needs of the children. And I think that that's exactly what we'd want, because, you know, children have lots of questions, but I think as adults we can imagine that we've got to give them much more information than they're actually seeking. But it sounds to me as if the teachers in this school were really able to just, you know, take their time, slow things down. I mean, there are some very clear facts about what's happened, so there are some things that children will be able to answer themselves. But I'm never so sure that we need to go into a huge amount of detail, because we need to listen to where children are, particularly primary age children, to hear what they think about what's happened, but also to build on that.
And it must be true, of course, that children react in all sorts of different ways, and you're teaching maybe 25 children in a class, and some children maybe don't want to talk about it, want to escape a bit. Some other children, as they said on the film, wanted to draw the tower every day. How do you help each child with their different responses? Some maybe wanting to hide away and others wanting to really engage.
I think it is about watching. I mean, I think that the curious thing about young people is that they are very watchful themselves. So, you know, they're looking to see what the adults are making of their behaviours and their emotional states. So, you know, children who are finding it important to draw or to talk about the sorts of things that they'd like to do when they're older, because then that would help them think about, you know, looking after people. Those are all really important things. But I thought it was really interesting, you know, that the teacher acknowledged that, you know, teachers spend most of the time with these young people, you know, more than parents sometimes. And actually, you know, being very aware of the difficulties that they find themselves in is important, but also keeping things going is also really important. I mean,
normality.
I think it's a huge relief for lots of children who perhaps don't find themselves in the same situation, thinking, actually, we're going to do our English lesson today, and that gives me quite a lot of structure and comfort. So I don't think we want to lose sight of sort of the ordinariness of a school day that actually will be quite comforting in and of itself.
What is really striking, of course, is, and this is not true of all tragedies is that the tower is there, very much a monument to what has happened, a reminder to what has happened. What difficulties can that create when you are every day literally walking to school or playing in the playground, as the teacher said? It's standing there, always reminding you.
Well, I think it becomes part of the community presence almost, you know, that actually I imagine for some children there are moments when they really forget about what's happened, you know, just for a little bit, but suddenly the reminder's there. And that's quite tricky because, you know, how do you go on? How do you sort of live your life and move on and have hope, as I think we've heard in that film, you know, have hope that things can change, that you can start to feel a bit better, but also that the community can start to feel better, because I'm sure a lot of children are very responsive to the fact that the community must feel very, very sad. And how do you go about your ordinary everyday business and be happy in the playground and playing games with your best friends, and then suddenly sort of be reminded that actually something truly terrible happened? So I think it's a real difficult time for a lot of people, but I think we've also got to keep sight of the fact that actually life does move forward and that children should be allowed to sort of catch themselves being a little bit happy and a bit hopeful.
Ms. Antrobus, thank you very much for coming in tonight. Thank you very much.